Hey everyone, today we are working on rounding decimals. Our learning goal today is that I can use place value to round a decimal to a given place. Let's review place value again. You've seen this chart before. Decimals are everything to the right of the decimal point. We have the tenths, the hundredths, and the thousandths. Remember, the farther you get to the right of the decimal point, the smaller the unit actually is. All right, when we're rounding to a given place, it's important to remember that old saying, 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or more, add 1 more. Let's look at the example. In this first number, we have 89 thousandths. If you notice, the 8 is underlined. That lets us know that we're rounding to the hundreds place because the 8 is in the hundreds place. I'm going to draw an arrow to the digit to the right. That's the digit I'm going to look at to see what happens to the 8. In this case, the digit is a 9. That's 5 or more. So I'm adding 1 more to the 8. Everything before that 8 is going to stay the same. But since I'm adding 1 to the 8, it becomes a 9. I don't need anything after it. My rounded number is 9 hundredths. Let's see another example. Here we have 45 and 67 hundredths. Here we're rounding the 5, which is in the ones place. This is also called rounding to the nearest whole number. I'm going to draw my arrow to the right. To the right of the 5 is a 6. That's 5 or more, so I'm adding 1 more to the 5. Remember, everything before it stays the same, so I still have the 4. I'm adding 1 to the 5, making a 6. And I don't need what's behind it. I can drop it. Now, our number is rounded to 46. In our last example, we have 1 and 23 hundredths. We're rounding the 2 and the tenths place. I'm drawing my arrow to the right to look at the number. That number is 4 or less, so I'm going to let the 2 rest. But remember, you still need everything before it. 1.2, or 1 and 2 tenths, is our rounded number. Since you see a pencil on this page, go ahead and pause the video. Write the saying in your notes, as well as the 3 examples. Another way that it could be asked is to name the place value of the underlined digit. In this first example here, the place value of that underlined digit is the ones place. Then, if we want to do that number rounded to the underlined digit, we're going to round to the ones place, or remember I said it could be called the nearest whole number. So I'm going to draw my arrow to the right. That number is 4 or less, so the 3 is going to rest and stay the same. The rounded number will be 3. Remember, you don't have to put zeros behind the decimal. You can just leave it at 3.
All right, now let's see another example. Now, this number, the 6 is underlined. And the place value that's underlined with that 6 is the tenths place.
Good job, Miss Whaley.
Thank you. I haven't done this in a while. Okay, so that means, hold on, I got to change colors. That means that we need to look at that 9 to decide. Ooh, look at my arrow. Okay. We have to look at the 9 to decide.
Your arrow's got to go to the 9.
Oh, well, my arrow was backwards?
Yes.
Well, you know what I mean, guys. The arrow, now I got to figure out how to change it. Hold on, how do I change it?
Erase.
Erase. Okay, I'm erasing now.
See, even teachers need erasers.
I haven't done this in a while. Leave me alone. Okay, so now my arrow is going to go to the 9. Does that make you happy, LeBach?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm looking at my 9 to decide what my 6 is going to turn into. So now because it is 9, 5 or more, raise the score. So now it's going to be a 7. So now we're changing it. Hold on, I got to go back to black. So now I'm going to round that number to a 7.
Don't forget the decimal point and then the 0 in front of it.
Oh, decimal point. Hold on. Decimal point and 0 in front.
So your rounded number is?
7 tenths.
Good job, Miss Whaley.
Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I think she did pretty good for a teacher that hasn't taught math in a while. Next, we're going to name the place to which the number is rounded. So if we look, we started with 2 and 34 hundredths, and that rounded to 2 3/10, meaning they rounded to this place here. Well, that digit is in the tenths place, so they rounded to the tenths place. We could prove it if we looked back at our original number. If I draw an arrow to the right, 4 less, let it rest, so 2 34/100 would become 2 3/10. Just a way to check our work. Next, we have 13 and 941 thousandths. That rounded to 14. 14, we don't see a decimal in that number, meaning that imaginary decimal must be at the end there. So they rounded here to the ones place. They rounded to the ones, also known as the nearest whole number. Our last example is 38 and 172 thousandths. That rounded to 38 and 2/10. So they rounded here to this last digit. That's the tenths place, so we know they rounded to the tenths place. Remember this THS at the end. If you don't have that, that becomes the tens place, and that's a totally different place value. Now it's time to summarize with our line of learning. In your math journal, explain the steps needed to round 3 and 487 thousandths to the nearest tenth. Make sure you use math vocabulary and signal words such as first, next, things like that. You should have at least 4 steps in your response. You're kind of taking on the role of the teacher here, guys. Pretend you are teaching a younger student how to do this. Be very specific in your steps. Have a good night.